My name is Kinran, and I have always had a difficult life. I am an ordinary high school student, but 3 years ago, my life took an unexpected turn. I developed a terminal illness. Since then, every day has been a constant struggle. I worked like a mule day and night. And after all that effort, I only managed to save 30,000 yen, barely 1% of the amount needed for my treatment. I have no parents or a good education. My life has always been a challenge. But when the doctor confirmed my diagnosis, I plunged into an even deeper abyss. The days passed, and the weight of my situation became unbearable. Trying to gather such an exorbitant amount of money wears down not only the body, but also the soul. Just when I was on the brink of despair, something changed. I was sitting on some stairs, trying to calm my mind, when I overheard a couple of men talking about an underground game. Their words caught my attention. They spoke about a virtual reality game that was popular among the rich. They said the items obtained within the game could be sold for millions of dollars in real life. I stayed silent, listening as they continued talking. That's when I learned that access to the game cost exactly 30,000 yen, all the money I had saved in my life. However, there was a terrifying detail. This game was unlike any other. The experience was 100% realistic, and if you died in the game, you also died in real life. According to them, the rich played because they could buy all kinds of equipment. But the poor, they had nothing to lose. I looked at the diagnosis in my hands, the paper that constantly reminded me my time was running out. Then I recalled what they said about the game's rewards. If there was a way, however risky, to save my life, I had to try it. That same night, I made my decision. I bought the virtual reality equipment and installed the game cartridge. The headset lit up, and a mechanic warned me about the risks of the game. With a lump in my throat, I confirmed my intention. A moment later, everything around me changed. Suddenly, I found myself in a vast virtual space. My body felt incredibly good, as if the illness consuming me in real life had never existed. The game began to load, and before I could process it, I was transported to a new world. I opened my eyes, and the first thing I noticed was a nauseating smell. The stench was unbearable. I tried to locate the source, and then I saw it. The body of a lifeless person. The sight was so shocking that I couldn't help but step back, tripping and falling to the ground. My stomach couldn't handle the shock, and I ended up vomiting in a corner. The place was grotesque. Everything around me screamed desperation. Now I understood why they said it was a 100% realistic game. This wasn't just a game. It was a hell disguised as entertainment. With effort, I got up. Every fiber of my being trembled, but I couldn't afford to remain paralyzed. If this was the price of my only chance to survive, I had to find a way to face it. After calming down, Kinran activated the character panel through the game system. The interface revealed his basic attributes, a nearly empty starting level with no skills or equipment. Although disheartening, he understood that he had to start from scratch. He remembered that in many games, corpses often, containing equipment, although repulsive, he rummaged through the fallen man's backpack. Inside the backpack, he found common provisions: water, dry bread, and some basic medicines. These were essential for his survival in a hostile world. Upon exploring further, he discovered a worn-out diary that seemed to recount the man's life before his fall. According to the diary, the war had lasted 41 months. Food, water, and medicine were scarce luxuries. Bombings were frequent, and the rebels lurked in the darkness. Nights, in particular, were described as more dangerous than days, and safe shelters were the sewers and drains. As it was already late, Kinran decided he needed to find a place to hide before nightfall. As he approached a door to leave, he heard murmurs coming from the other side. Before he could react, the door was suddenly flung open by a young girl who appeared to be chased. Kinran quickly hid while observing the scene. The girl seemed to have noticed him. Gasping from effort, she shouted at her pursuer to stay away. The pursuer was a gigantic man who burst into the room with a wicked smile, mocking the girl while claiming she had no escape, and that they would have a good time. Kinran felt a chill. The situation was clearly dangerous, but he wasn't sure he could face someone like that. Although new to this world, he understood that underestimating him could cost his life. The girl seemed to have noticed Kinren but said nothing. Instead, she tried to keep the man focused on her, probably to give him a chance to act. He hesitated, but upon seeing that the man was about to attack her, he decided to seize the opportunity being offered to him. Taking a deep breath, he launched himself into the attack with the dagger he had found earlier. Although the man noticed Kinren at the last moment, he couldn't react in time. Kinren stabbed him, though he failed to deliver a lethal blow. The man roared in pain, and Kinren knew he couldn't stop. Without giving him time to recover, he attacked 2 more times, forcing the man to retreat. At that moment, a system notification appeared in the corner of his vision. You have learned Basic Dagger Mastery. Power increased by 10. He felt a series of movements flow into his mind. After mastering the dagger, it was as if an acquired instinct allowed him to clearly visualize his opponent's weak points. The giant man, surprised, mocked him, saying, "You're just a novice!" But his words were interrupted when Kinren found a weak point and precisely launched a clean attack. The dagger penetrated deeply, causing the man to retreat. With disbelief and pain, Kinren realized something crucial. If he hadn't obtained the skill with the basic dagger, this confrontation would have been his end. As the giant fell, the girl in the room cast him a fleeting glance and, with a firm voice, said, "The war loot is yours. I don't plan to take it from you." Without waiting for a response, she ran out of the place. Although she had helped him, it was clear she didn't trust him. Kinren watched as she disappeared into the distance, reflecting on how advanced the game's system was, especially regarding NPCs. Returning to the defeated man, he searched his body, hoping to find valuable equipment. To his disappointment, the giant had barely anything useful, just some cigarettes and a weapon of worse quality than his dagger. Even in this game, some are poorer than me. Exploring the area further, he realized he was in what seemed to be a ruined, wealthy neighborhood. He thought the mansions might have underground entrances, perfect for hiding before nightfall. Deciding not to take any more risks, he tried to avoid other survivors, at least until he grew stronger. However, as he walked, he heard nearby noises. 2 men were fighting a few meters away. Kinren thought he might take advantage of the situation to gain some benefit by eliminating them while they were distracted, but decided it wasn't worth the risk. Just as he tried to step back and avoid them, he stepped on a dry branch. The crack echoed like thunder in the silence. Both men stopped their fight and turned toward where Kinren was. "Who's there?" one of them shouted. Kinren barely had time to process the situation when he recognized the girl he had met earlier among the 2 people in conflict. The guy she was fighting tensed up at the sight of more people and, without warning, tried to flee. However, a gunshot rang out and the man fell to the ground lifeless. "Take cover," the girl whispered, as both took shelter behind some rubble. Kinren barely managed to hide when he noticed several men approaching. The girl explained, "They're the vultures. If they find us, we're done for." "With a name like that, they already sound like bad news," Kinren replied in a low voice. She continued, "They're a gang of ruthless thugs. They leave no survivors and enjoy causing suffering." Before they could devise a more elaborate plan, the girl took the initiative. "I'll be the decoy. You take care of them." Without waiting for his response, she stepped out of hiding with her arms raised, pleading for mercy. Kinren was impressed by her determination and quick thinking, though he also thought it was risky. The men began approaching, laughing maliciously. Kinren observed carefully, calculating his moves. He knew the element of surprise would be his only advantage. "If I take out the second guy from behind quickly, the other won't have time to react," he thought. But the risk was high, and his stamina was dangerously low. As the first man, blinded by lust, lowered his guard while approaching the girl, Kinren decided to act. Changing his plans, he rushed forward swiftly, his dagger ready to strike. The second man reacted instantly, raising his weapon, but Kinren was too close to the first one. With a precise strike, he plunged the dagger into the man. Using the body of the first, Kinren shoved him against the second, destabilizing him just enough to close the distance. With an agile movement, he turned the dagger and finished off the second man before he could recover. Breathing heavily, Kinren realized he had survived another deadly encounter, but his stamina was at its limit. His endurance bar had dropped significantly, a reminder of how fragile he still was in this brutal world. While checking the bodies, he found 2 pistols and several rounds of ammunition. The girl remarked, "I did my part, so I have a right to some of the loot." Kinren didn't argue. He knew she had helped him more than once, and staying on good terms with someone in this world could be crucial. "All right, we ran into each other and worked together so we can keep helping each other in the future," he said. With that, he handed her one of the pistols. She nodded in gratitude and suggested, "Let's search the bodies quickly before more people arrive, drawn by the gunshots." After looting the 3 men, they took the most useful items and began walking cautiously. As they advanced, the girl assured him, "Don't worry so much. I've been keeping watch to make sure no one follows us." Kinren didn't lower his guard, but appreciated the comment. After walking for a while, the girl stopped next to a metal hatch on the ground. With effort, she lifted it, revealing access to what appeared to be a bunker. "Get down quickly. We'll be safe here," she said. Once inside, she introduced herself. "My name is Colin. Are you a soldier?" Kinren shook his head. "I'm Kinren. And no, I'm not a soldier, just a fighter trying to survive." Colin looked at him with curiosity before apologizing. "Sorry for the question. I've come across many deserters and rebels lately. Some are nice, but others not so much." Kinren reflected for a moment before replying, "There will always be good and bad people everywhere." Colin seemed satisfied with the response and added, "In exchange for your help today, I'll let you stay here tonight, but you need to leave before nightfall tomorrow." Kinren was a bit surprised by Colin's words, but said nothing. He appreciated having a place to rest, even if only for a short time. However, in the middle of the night, he woke up. As he did, he noticed Colin eating something quietly. She was startled to see him awake and choked on her food. "Take it easy," Kinren said as he searched his bag for a bottle of water. He quickly offered it to her. Colin took the water with some hesitation, but accepted it gratefully, knowing that supplies were scarce. Kinren didn't hesitate to share. His gesture seemed to ease the tension a bit. At that moment, the system notified him that he was hungry. The sensation was so real that he couldn't ignore it. He pulled out something to eat, and as he chewed, he broke the silence. "Colin, who exactly are the vultures?" She sighed and began to explain. Before the war, the vulture was nothing more than a small-time gangster. When everything fell apart, he was locked up in a police station. But somehow, he managed to seize an entire arsenal and freed his gang mates from Zelda. Since then, they've looted and done whatever they wanted. Kinren frowned. "Is he as dangerous as he sounds?" "More," Colin replied seriously. "Not only is he powerful, but he's also vindictive. No one who offends him survives." Kinren, processing the information, said he was in trouble. Colin looked at him intently and corrected him. "Not you. United States. Those guys who attacked us last night probably got in touch with the vultures before they fell. It's only a matter of time before they send their henchmen after us." Colin asked how many he could face alone. Kinren replied, "With some luck, 3, but if there are too many, it'll be impossible. Even with a stealth attack, I'm not invincible," he admitted sincerely. Colin nodded thoughtfully. "You have skills with the dagger, but how good are you at stealth?" Kinren laughed softly. "What I did before was an accident. But staying hidden here until I die of hunger or they find me isn't an option." Kinren thought that the vultures weren't like common thugs. If he managed to take them out, he could get good equipment, at least enough to make the risk worthwhile. Isn't that why he entered the game in the first place? Colin told him she was good at dodging attacks, and if he was willing, she could teach him the art of evasion. If he improved in that, his chances of surviving combat would increase significantly. Kinren couldn't help but reflect on why Colin was teaching him. Was she a simple survivor willing to help, or could she be something more, like a system tutor guiding him because he met certain requirements? Either way, he decided not to overthink it and focus on improving. The learning was smoother than he expected. The basic movements that Colin considered difficult seemed almost natural to Kinren. Surprised, she asked, "Have you practiced gymnastics or something similar?" "Not really," Kinren replied. "But I've always been physically active and passionate about combat arts. I guess that helps. While they continued training, a squad of the vultures had been sent to hunt them down. The group leader gave his men clear instructions. Stay in formation. The target is armed, so don't underestimate anyone. Remember, we've got bulletproof vests. With that warning, the group began to spread out across the area. Kinrin had already selected a strategic spot for his attack. When one of the men passed nearby, he eliminated him silently with a precise strike. Searching the body, he found a bulletproof vest in good condition and took it, knowing it could make a difference in combat. Now armed with a dagger and a pistol, he moved quickly toward his next target. The second man was nearby, and Kinrin surprised him, stabbing him in the neck before he could react. His movement was swift and precise, leaving the enemy no chance to defend himself. The problem arose with the third, an enemy positioned in an elevated spot. He had a clear view of the terrain and was armed. Kinrin evaluated his options and considered momentarily retreating. However, he knew he needed to take out at least 2 more to reduce the odds against him. Moving stealthily, taking advantage of the opportunity, he moved toward another of the men who was distracted, smoking, and quickly eliminated him. That's when the system notified him. Skill acquired, basic stealth. Your agility and ability to move silently have improved. Now you are harder to detect. This achievement confirmed that, to obtain new skills, he needed to perform specific actions successfully several times. Now, with greater stealth and confidence, Kinrin prepared to face the remaining enemies. It's time to finish these guys, he thought, feeling his body become lighter and his movements more fluid. At this point, he had already taken down the 5th man, and the rest of the vultures were beginning to grow nervous, calling out to each other and trying to organize. The element of surprise was gone, and Kinrin knew he couldn't keep advancing stealthily. He decided to try his luck with his gun. Emerging from his cover, his first shot hit an enemy in the chest, but the bulletproof vest absorbed part of the damage, reducing the target's life by only 50 points. His aim was still poor, and if the shot had been to the head, it would have ended right there. Luckily, Colin, from a nearby position, managed to shoot the same enemy's leg with precision, giving Kinrin the opportunity for a counterattack. However, he missed again. Even so, the guy got up and ran toward his companion, who, observing Kinrin's performance, said, "That guy can't shoot. He's just a rookie with weapons. As long as we keep him at a distance, we can make it out of this. Be the decoy while I take him out." Kinrin understood the strategy clearly. He knew that if he tried to shoot, the enemy would likely seize the chance to take him down. But if he didn't, they would escape and bring reinforcements. If he could land a 3rd successful shot to unlock a firearm handling skill, the tide would turn in his favor. With determination, he aimed and fired again. This time, he managed to hit the man acting as a decoy. The shot was effective. At that moment, the one who had been in hiding came out to confront him. But Kinrin received good news. The system immediately notified him. Skill acquired. Basic firearm handling. Your accuracy and control when shooting have improved. Now, you are more effective in ranged combat. With this new skill, Kinrin decided to take a more aggressive approach. The man who had been hiding was quickly taken down. For Kinrin, having this skill was a great relief. The last man standing begged for mercy. Instead of eliminating him immediately, Kinrin saw an opportunity to further strengthen himself. He repeatedly struck the man, aiming to perfect his unarmed combat skills. After a few minutes, the system notified him. Skill acquired, unarmed combat. Your ability to fight hand-to-hand has improved significantly. Your strikes are more precise and effective. Colin, watching the scene, couldn't help but ask in a serious tone, "Are you just going to keep beating him, or do you have another plan?" Kinrin, with a cold smile, replied, "I'll treat him well until he gives me what I want. Right now, he's more valuable alive." The man, now terrified, realized he was trapped in a game he couldn't easily escape. "Tell me everything you know about the vulture's hideout," Kinrin demanded in a cold and authoritative tone. The prisoner, nervous and trembling, responded, "I don't know much. The hideout is in an underground warehouse beneath the shopping center on 6th Avenue, and there are about 20 men there." Kinran, frustrated by the vague response, slapped him. "I'm not interested in the obvious. I want to know what you don't tell others." The man confessed more details. All right. There are actually 30 men. We recently took in another group. Kinren interrupted with a curious look. How do you sustain 30 people under those conditions? The warehouse has enough supplies for that. The prisoner nodded frantically. I'm not lying. The higher-ups have special access to resources. They've been trading goods. They even captured girls and offered them in exchange for resources. Kinren clenched his teeth in disgust. Animals, he muttered to himself, his contempt for the vultures growing with every word. He then demanded, "Give me a map of the hideout and the positions of the men." The prisoner, knowing his fate was sealed, quickly complied. With the information in hand, Kinren ended him without hesitation. However, something caught his attention. He didn't receive a new skill. Could there be a limit to the skills I can acquire this way? Kinren wondered, intrigued but without time to dwell on it. The leader of the vultures was a key enemy. If he took him down, he was sure to gain valuable equipment. Dismantle their operation. This is the perfect moment to attack since they don't know their men have fallen. He transmitted his thoughts to his partner. Colin frowned skeptically. The vulture's nest isn't a place for strangers. If you approach, they'll shoot without hesitation. Kinren told her they didn't know him, and it would be easier to infiltrate. Ever since they sent men to suppress us, it's clear they have no intention of leaving us alone. If we don't act now, they'll keep sending larger and better armed groups, Colin. Although worried about the risk, she acknowledged that Kinren was right. The element of surprise was on their side, and this was the ideal moment to act. Before the vultures could reinforce their position at the entrance of the mall, two members of the group were conversing casually. "It's not bad to smoke while working, is it?" one asked. "It doesn't matter. The sniper covers us from above. If anyone approaches, they'll be eliminated before getting through the doors," replied the other confidently. What they didn't know was that the sniper had already been taken down by Kinren minutes earlier. While examining the fallen enemy's rifle, Kinren considered it an excellent weapon, but decided his priority was infiltrating without raising suspicion. Taking advantage of the distraction, he attacked the two guards with quick, precise movements, neutralizing them in seconds. His stealth skills, now combined with his basic combat experience, allowed him to execute these actions smoothly. Upon entering the mall, he noticed the place had electricity. As he advanced, he heard a male voice. A guard, who seemed frustrated, was muttering about how his companions were enjoying themselves while he was stuck on watch duty. The guard quickly turned and aimed his weapon at him. "Who are you?" Kinren reacted calmly, remembering what the prisoner had mentioned earlier. "Dry sent me," he replied confidently. The guard held his weapon firmly. "Then why aren't you with him?" Kinren improvised a convincing response. "The raid was a resounding success. Everyone's celebrating upstairs, and the boss asked me to come fetch the other brothers." The guard hesitated for a moment, but finally lowered his guard. That brief window of carelessness was enough for Kinren to silently eliminate him. He placed the body in a discreet location to avoid raising suspicion. As he moved deeper into the building, he heard screams in the distance. It was just as the prisoner had described. The vultures were taking advantage of their position of power. There was no time to waste. If he didn't act quickly, they might discover what had happened outside. Kinren advanced cautiously through the mall's hallways, stopping in front of a steel door. He knocked softly, and a voice from inside asked, "Who is it?" With a confident voice, Kinren replied, "Boss Joker sent me." A man opened the door slightly and looked at him distrustfully. "Who are you?" he asked, scrutinizing him. Kinren told him he knew he was an honorable man, and that Dre had introduced him. The vulture observed him for a few seconds before nodding. "All right. I think Joker mentioned you. By the way, where is he? And what happened to the couple?" The question confirmed Kinren's suspicions about his identity. Without hesitation, he replied, "The man was eliminated, and the girl was captured by Joker." The vulture nodded with satisfaction and began to close the door, but Kinren didn't give him the chance. He quickly stopped him and neutralized him with a lethal attack. The man fell to the ground before he could react. Inside the room, Kinren heard noises. It seemed the vulture was in the middle of some task. A woman, trembling with fear, looked at him from a corner. "Calm down," Kinren said in a firm but calm voice. "I'm not going to hurt you." Suddenly, a phone in the room began to ring. Kinren picked it up, and a male voice spoke on the other end. "Why did you take so long to answer? If you keep being so slow, you'll pay the consequences." Kinren, quickly adapting, responded, "The person you were looking for is no longer among the alive now. I am in charge." The voice from the other side paused and then replied with a threatening tone. "Do you know who you're talking to? In 5 minutes, my men will be there, heavily armed, ready to surround you." Kinren, maintaining his composure, asked, "Are you threatening me?" "This is not a threat. It's a fact," the man responded. "And don't forget who provides your supplies. If you don't follow my orders, you'll be eliminated." Kinren, without losing control, admitted, "It seems you have quite a bit of power. What do you want?" The man on the other side responded immediately, "I want the jewels and valuable pieces of art that the vulture kept in his room." Kinren calmly agreed. Then the man ordered his subordinate to send reinforcements to the location. If they didn't hear news soon, they had authorization to eliminate everyone. He knew he was playing with fire, but he had no other choice. A great risk carried a great reward, and this greater rebel named Saluka was a boss of higher caliber than the vulture. If he fell in this clandestine game, he would also fall in real life. But if he didn't make enough money, he was going to perish anyway. As the seconds passed, he looked at the girl who was still tied up in the room. "I won't hurt you," he assured her firmly. "But you need to stay quiet. There are too many vultures outside, and any noise could alert them." The terrified young woman nodded quickly. Kinren approached, carefully removed the gag from her mouth, and then began to untie her. Checking the room, he turned his attention to one of the vulture's cabinets and opened it, revealing an impressive arsenal. He also found some jewels, which were the ones that the greater Saluka wanted. This would be enough to retire if he could copy them, he thought, regretting that his ability didn't allow him to replicate valuable items. The game's designers knew how to keep the balance between risk and reward. Despite everything, the loot gave him an idea. He told the girl it was time to leave and solve the problems. Kinren moved cautiously, looking for a quick exit. As he passed by a hallway, he heard voices coming from a nearby room. He stopped and saw that he was in the electricity machine room. Without hesitation, he flipped the switches, plunging everything into darkness. From inside, the men started cursing and arguing about what had happened. A few seconds later, one of them came out to inspect. But before he could take a step, Kinren surprised him with a kick, throwing him backward and slamming the door wide open. "Time to clean up," he said with a cold smile as he pulled 2 grenades from his pockets. He threw the explosives into the room and took cover. An explosion shook the place, taking out all the occupants. When the dust settled, Kinren turned the electricity machines back on. However, something caught his attention. The loot had disappeared. Could the greater Saluka have a spy here? "I don't have time to find out now," he thought as he quickly advanced through the hallways, checking the other rooms and making sure no enemy was left behind. He finally managed to exit to the outside with the girl who was following him closely. Kinren, confused, stopped. "Why are you following me?" The girl introduced herself as Maggie and asked if she could accompany him, explaining that she was a nurse and could be useful. For the first time in a long while, a slight smile crossed Kinren's face. "All right, stay with me," he said, while thinking that he needed to get her skills. They finally arrived at the hideout where Colin was waiting. Kinren explained everything that had happened and who she was. "Who is she?" asked Colin, looking at Maggie with curiosity and a hint of distrust. "She's Maggie. The vultures had captured her, but she managed to survive. She's a nurse, so she will be useful." Colin welcomed her, but inside, he couldn't shake off his suspicion of the newcomer. "She's already trying to seem vulnerable to gain favor," he thought with some disgust. Kinren broke the silence. "We have bigger problems." "What does that mean?" asked Colin, alarmed. Kinren explained the exchange with the rebel, detailing the imminent threat and the possibility that the hideout could be discovered. "We need to pack the essentials: food, water, and anything we can carry. We'll leave here before dawn. This place is no longer safe," he said. Kinren showed no signs of worry. "It's not that bad, Colin. It's not as dangerous as you think. Besides, that rebel officer is just a mid-rank officer." "That may be true," Colin replied. "But even a mid-rank officer like him has hundreds of trained and armed men. We can't underestimate them." Kinren showed her the jewels and the loot he had brought. "I know what I'm doing, Colin. I brought these things for a reason. I already have a plan. The sound of the phone cut off the conversation. Kinren looked at it for a second before picking it up. He told the girls to pack food for 3 days and not to worry, as he would return safe and sound. While he prepared, Major Saluka was furious, as he couldn't believe the guy had gotten away with it. Anyway, with the weight on his shoulders, he wouldn't be able to run for long, so he was going to send his men at dawn to comb the area in a 20-kilometer radius. At that moment, his phone began to ring, and immediately he asked his subordinate to track the enemy. "Still want your jewels?" Kinren asked. The voice of the rebel major on the other side of the line was cold and filled with rage. "You're a liar. You won't get away with this." "That depends," Kinren replied unflinchingly. "Are you still interested in your jewels? Or do you want to talk business?" There was a tense moment of silence before the major responded. "Do you want to get out of this city?" Kinren asked calmly. "You have the means to do so. I have what you want. It's a simple deal." The major thought for a moment before responding. "Give me back the jewels, and I'll make sure you get out of the city." "Perfect. I'll see you at dusk at the Vulture's watch. Don't be late." Kinren hung up without waiting for more, and in a swift move, removed the battery from the phone. "A minute is enough to track you, but not if you anticipate it," he thought as he took the battery out of the phone. He needed to rest since the enemy would be closing in soon. Meanwhile, at the rebel headquarters, Major Saluka was asking. His subordinate, who we know the location of, told him that apparently he was near the Los Bitres warehouse. Major Saluka didn't waste any time. He sent a team there. "I want you to finish off the enemy and get back everything they stole intact." The confrontation was getting closer. The night was dark, and the dim lights of the city barely illuminated the place. In the distance, a vehicle stopped, and from it, a squad of soldiers disembarked. The man in charge gave clear and precise instructions. "Eliminate the gunman and recover the jewels. Snipers and machine gunners take strategic positions. Search teams divide up and cover the area." Kinren observed the formation of the squad carefully. "They're not like the others. These guys are well-trained soldiers," he thought. He knew that if he allowed the snipers to position themselves, he'd be at a disadvantage. He took a deep breath, adjusted his rifle, and calmly squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out in the night, and the first sniper fell. Chaos broke out immediately. The soldiers began firing randomly, trying to take cover while reorganizing. The operation leader, seeing the situation, asked firmly, "What's going on?" "The sniper has fallen," reported one of his subordinates. "Cover your positions. This is no ordinary enemy." While the soldiers tried to regroup, Kinren took the opportunity to shoot again, eliminating a machine gunner who was about to take cover. Every shot was calculated, but his health bar was beginning to decrease with the enemy's efforts. Even with a surprise attack and choosing the best conditions, these guys were much stronger than anyone he'd faced before, Kinren reflected. The game's realism made every wound affect his mobility and aiming ability. He should have learned something from Maggie before coming. "This is more complicated than I expected," he thought, while quickly moving to avoid being detected. The soldiers, following their leader's orders, advanced cautiously, searching for his position in a building. "Down!" ordered the leader after losing another man. "This guy is no ordinary one. He knows how to use a sniper rifle and has perfect control of his shots. He could be part of the government forces," he thought. It was only a matter of time before they restored order in the city. When that happened, he could be saved thanks to Major Saluka, but that guarantee relied on the premise of not taking out the government forces. Still, at that moment, he didn't care about his major's orders. He had no choice. He began reorganizing his men, evaluating each move of Kinren. He ordered a pair to position themselves as snipers, while leaving one specifically to act as bait. Kinren observed the soldiers' movements through his scope. There was something strange about their behavior. One man was advancing without cover, exposing himself. This doesn't make sense. No professional would do something like that. It's a decoy, Kinren thought. Adjusting his position, the trap was obvious, but it also revealed something important. The soldiers were searching for his location. He quickly scanned the area and deduced that the enemies were trying to surround him to take an elevated position from which they could eliminate him. He carefully scanned the area, looking for the snipers attempting to flank him. Finally, He located them. They were in the only spot from which they could clearly see him. He took a deep breath, adjusted his rifle, and shot before they reached their target. He managed to take out one of the rebels, but the others didn't give him time to react. They opened fire in his direction. With no other option, he moved out of his cover to dodge the bullets and eliminate the next one who was trying to take the sniper's position. He knew that if they gained that strategic advantage, he would be finished. Time was working against him. With a quick move, he positioned himself and neutralized the man who was trying to take control of the elevated point. However, his maneuver did not go unnoticed. The other rebels responded with an incessant burst of bullets. His bulletproof vest absorbed some of the damage, but the ammunition from an assault rifle was far more lethal than his pistol. The impact of the bullets lowered his health to 55. The pain points were weakening him, and the weight of the rifle he carried along with the magazines was becoming increasingly unbearable. His senses were worsening with every step. Fortunately, he had a plan for this situation. He reached the spot where he had hidden supplies, hoping that the rules of this clandestine game were similar to others and that he could recover health by eating. He took a can of food, opening it with trembling hands. As he brought the food to his mouth, he felt a slight relief. As he recovered, the enemy began tracking him. They had identified that he was injured and saw it as a unique opportunity to finish the mission. One of the rebels was arguing with his leader. If we had used heavier weapons, this would already be over. The commanding officer looked at him furiously and replied in a low, firm voice, "Shut up. Do not question the major's orders. Our main mission is to bring back the jewels. If we fail, we will pay a very high price." While they argued, Kinren was recovering. The food restored 25 health points, raising his status to 80 points. Though he still had light wounds, he knew that as long as he didn't take too many risks, he could keep going. He took a deep breath, feeling his strength slowly returning. With determination, he gripped his rifle. The critical moment had passed. Now it was his turn to take the initiative. One of the rebels reported to the captain that Kinren's trail had disappeared. Still, they continued toward a nearby cave, convinced their target was hidden there. The captain raised his voice, demanding that Kinren come out, but the response was not what he expected. One of his men fell instantly, shot by a precise shot. The commanding officer ordered the machine gun team to take action. The situation was out of control, and they needed to resolve it immediately. From his hidden position, Kinren tried to shoot the captain, but he managed to dodge it with agility, confirming the suspicions that he was an elite soldier. Shortly after, a member of the machine gun team arrived to support the captain, positioning himself to do his job. But the unexpected happened. He betrayed the others, eliminating all of them mercilessly. In the chaos, Kinren, who had been observing from his hiding place, wondered what had just happened. He planned to shoot the traitor before he had the chance to attack again, but surprisingly, the man disappeared before Kinren could pull the trigger. With no time to waste, Kinren grabbed his weapon and began running. He knew the traitor was much more dangerous than the captain. He had proven to be a lethal strategist, using cowardice as a disguise to manipulate and eliminate his own allies. This is part of a larger plan. He must be following orders from Major Saluka, Kinren thought as he advanced through the rough terrain. However, he didn't have much time to reflect, as the traitor intercepted him on the way. The man said, "We need to have a good talk." Kinren reacted quickly, pulling his weapon from his waistband and shooting without hesitation, but his bullet hit a decoy. The traitor had anticipated his move. Taking advantage of the moment of confusion, the man ambushed Kinren, cornering him with his guard down. Kinren, with adrenaline at its peak, refused to accept his defeat. "I'm going to die here without even passing the novice level. I didn't risk everything to enter this damn clandestine game just to fall now," he thought, trying to find a way out. The man holding him didn't seem in a hurry to end him. "If I wanted to hurt you, you'd already be dead. I don't intend to finish you off, at least not yet." "Why?" asked Kinren. While his mind, he was looking for some advantage. "What do you want from me?" the traitor asked. He said he wanted the jewels, and if he gave them to him, they would reach an agreement. Kinren looked at him distrustfully. "What do I get?" The traitor, without losing his calm, replied, "I'll give you what you need to get out of this city. With my contacts, it wouldn't be hard. I work directly for General J. All Kinren wanted was to end Major Saluka and improve his stats. However, The man now in front of him was not ordinary. Not only did he know about the conversation Kinran had with the Major, but he had also managed to infiltrate his inner circle. This could only mean one thing. This guy was working for the true mastermind behind the whole conflict. "So, have you considered my offer?" asked the man with a cunning smile, as if he knew Kinran had no other choice. Kinran, injured and exhausted, tried to stay calm.